This is teacher Amin with you. Hope you're all doing good. Please inform me if my voice is clear to you, please. Thank you. Hello. My name is teacher Amin. I am here to talk to you about the IELTS and how to prepare for it. And we're going to ask questions, answer those questions. I will first of all start with talking about the IELTS in general, and then I will leave you room to ask any questions so we can answer them and we take it from there. In the beginning, I want to present myself. My name is teacher Amin. I've been teaching English for more than a decade here in the Middle East. I am also collaborating for the meantime with different entities like Qatar University, like other, institutions, whether it's governmental or private. And I've trained hundreds of students here in the Middle East and elsewhere. I would like to start this talk and say that the IELTS exam is basically a training, not the study of language itself. It means that you have to be prepared for the IELTS by working on your English skills, first of all. In other words, I can tell you that you would apply for the IELTS exam for two cases, whether you need it for academic reasons or for other reasons like traveling to a country where the English language is the main language of the country, or where English is the language that you're going to use to study there or to work there. So, with that being said, you have to put in mind always that when you opt for the IELTS, this examination tells a lot about your English skills. For instance, when you want to pursue an academic, studies or whatever, what they ask you basically is that you need to, for example, present your IELTS certificate with a band score of 6 out of 9, for example, 5.5, sometimes 4.5, etc. Now, when you want to work on your IELTS certificate, you get that training, and then you have to be focused in the sense that if I am to present my IELTS certificate and they ask me the minimum of 6, I have to make sure that I meet the level that would take me to 6 out of 9 as a band score. And this is where I see many students and many participants do not work on this particular aspect properly, meaning that when you go and you sit for the IELTS examination, you want to make sure that my current uh, level of the English language is 6. Well, here, of course, you're going to ask the question, how am I going to know? How am I going to know my level, and how am I going to make sure that I can meet 6 out of 9 as a band score? Here we can talk about what we call the CEFR, which is the Common European Framework of Reference, where big publishers like Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press present many different manuals that help you to study the language in terms of these standards, this framework called this European Framework of Reference. For sure, it's CEFR. CFR is basically categorized into 6 levels. So any user of any language should be either beginner, elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate, upper intermediate, or advanced. So when you talk about 6, you need to know which level would take me to 6. Here I can tell you, if you want to meet 6, you should be at least level 4, which is the intermediate level. So it's always, and this is, I think, the most important thing that I want to share with you in today's lecture, so to speak, which is before I go and book an IELTS exam, pay the fees, reserve a seat, I have to know my level in the English language. And to know this is very easy, very easy. For example, you could use different like placement tests presented by either Oxford University Press, Cambridge, and many other big academic institutions. And you do that exam on your own and you follow the instructions of the exam, you get your answer key or you ask a teacher to help you, and then you would know exactly which level are you. If you do identify and define your level of the English language, how you speak it, how you read it, how you listen to it, and how you write it, the 4 skills that you're going to meet during the IELTS exam. So this step is very important. So you would pick the right book that would help you to prepare yourself for the IELTS exam. If you go to any bookstore, you will find some books, especially by Cambridge University Press, that tell you specifically if you are working on a band score like 5.5, this is the manual for you. If you are working on a band score that is 6.5 plus, this is the manual for you, because you want to work on a pace and with the level that would help you to meet the band score that is going to get you to the university you want to apply to, or to complete the file that would like help you travel to another country for work reasons or other reasons. So this is the first advice I am sharing with you right here. Of course, the other issue that I always encounter with the students and the participants who ask for help for the training to pass the IELTS exam is that when they start preparing for the IELTS exam, they do not work on different skills in a different manner, meaning that most of the people today, they can speak English in terms of daily life. So they can travel, they can book a hotel, they can lead a nice conversation in English, they can talk about anything personal or even, cultural and so on and so forth. However, when it comes to the IELTS, there is an academic IELTS, and here I'm addressing the students and the participants who are willing to apply for the academic test, who are numerous and more in terms of those who ask for the training in the different institutions that we collaborate with. We always find academic IELTS is more demanded than the general training. We'll talk later about what is the difference between the academic and the general training, of course. So, when you want to work on a particular skill, you don't only need an IELTS book, an IELTS training book. And what you find in the market is mainly books from Cambridge University Press, because it's an institution that is part of the IELTS community plus IDP Australia and the British Council. So, of course, when you work on the skill, for example, of writing, there is an academic aspect to it. That academic aspect is very important, meaning that if you want to get yourself a score that you are looking for, you have to make sure that you prepare yourself properly to reach, for example, 6 out of 9 in the IELTS exam in the writing component. And here I can tell you that because I believe most of the students, most of the students, they don't read for academic purposes. So when they sit for the IELTS exam, they do not meet the standards of the IELTS exam themselves. And hopefully we can meet in a new occasion so we can talk about all the details or the standards based on which the assessor will look at your paper and mark it and give you a certain band score, which is, I believe, a very important discussion and a very important, advice that students should be aware of. So here, if you want to really do a good job in the IELTS, you have to start looking for improving your writing skills, your speaking skills also, in terms of how I write and for which purpose I write. Of course, there is a huge difference between writing for a formal purpose or an informal purpose. In the IELTS exam, they do look at your work deeply and they take a lot of things into consideration, starting from, did you meet the task? Did you answer the question? They look at your grammar and how do you write your sentences. They also look at the coherence and cohesion of your writing and different aspects that we can talk about in, a meeting soon. So the importance of reading for academic purposes, it helps you a lot to improve your English language. And basically, I observe that the students and the participants who opt for the IELTS exam, they are good students. Their English language mastery is outstanding, but it lacks that foundation of uh, probably writing for a specific purpose. Like, for example, when you are asked to talk about something that is cultural or probably societal, what I find is that students easily run out of ideas. They run out of ideas to meet the 250 words that they need to, you know, write for the IELTS in task two, for example. So here, I really do invite you, as my second advice, to start reading as soon as you can, and you do a daily schedule, and you pick a book that is modern, that is academic, not a novel, and you can start, reading in it. For example, if I pick any book from here, let me take a look at this. Yeah, like take a look at these books, for example. So these books, you can find them in Virgin Bookstore if you live here in the Middle East, or like this book, for example, The Answer: How to Take Charge of Your Life and Become the Person You Want to Be. Whether you like the book or you don't, but the style of writing here helps you a lot to improve your writing skills so you could do a very good job during the writing in the IELTS. Not only that, it will also help you understand the reading texts that you're going to uh, encounter during your IELTS examination. Like this book also is a book that can help. There are a lot of like titles like that, The Power of Habit, and so on and so forth. So this is just like a general introduction about the IELTS and quick advices about how to deal with the IELTS. And now I want to talk to you briefly about these four skills. So if you apply for the academic IELTS and the general training IELTS, of course, both of the examinations are based on four skills, as you know: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The only difference there between the academic and the general training is, first of all, the reading. The reading for the academic IELTS is different from the reading for the general training. So when you talk about the academic IELTS, from the name of the exam, you could guess that it's going to be more academic. So the reading in the academic IELTS is basically texts that are taken from whether magazines, books, newspapers, and these kind of texts are, meant to be read by people in different disciplines, different topics and subjects, who are not like the professionals and who are not like the scientists. Like for me, if I'm a teacher, for example, and I want to read about the particular agricultural topic, I can pick any magazine that is sold for the public. And of course, that text is going to be written with an academic style, but it's dedicated to people like me who are not like people who studied agriculture and so on and so forth. Still, the style of writing is academic, and you are likely to encounter a lot of vocabulary that you haven't, probably knew from before. But it doesn't matter if your English is solid and good. So the context always helps you to understand, the meaning of the general idea. So here we said that academic IELTS and general training, in terms of the reading component, there is a difference. In the general training, it's general texts, not with an academic, style. And also the writing. The writing for the academic IELTS is academic. But when you talk about the general training, it's going to be to write an email or a letter. It's something different. For example, for the academic IELTS writing, So you're meant to write two texts or two pieces of writing, I mean. The first one is task one, and the second one is task two. So in the task one, you have to turn data into words, so to speak. So they always give you, as you know, like maps or some graphs, and you have to observe the graph and, report the information there with picking and choosing the most important aspects of that, data you have, whether it's a map or a graph, and so on and so forth. And here you have to do it in a framework of time, and then you have to write 150 words minimum. You go to task two. It's this time is going to be different. It's going to be a task about, for example, your point of view about a certain topic, whether you agree or disagree, and you have to write 250 words minimum. So here, the most important thing is that you meet the standards of the IELTS, and hopefully we can meet in another time to talk about this, in details. So when you write for the for this purpose, you have also to show your mastery over the English language in terms of how you do write the sentences, in terms of grammar, terms of spelling, and then we look at the whole paragraph and see how coherent you are. And at the end of the day, also you have to write about what you were given, and you don't deviate and start talking about elements that are not important to the subject, and so on and so forth. Now, so this is the first thing you have to know about, the difference between the academic and the general training. So, but for the speaking, it's the same. There is no difference. It's the same, and also the listening, and so on and so forth. Uh, like I informed you before, when you do sit for an IELTS examination, basically you are showing your capacity using the English language properly. That's why, for example, when you want to apply for the university, they ask you 6 out of 9, as a band score, especially if you are applying for for master's degree or an important discipline like engineering, etc. This is to say that if you're going to join that university, you have to be prepared to deal with the materials that you're going to study during your time at the university, and that you are ready to do a good job in what you study, basically. And that's why I told you before, you have to start reading from now. You have to start reading and listening to the English language along the academic scale. Of course, what we observe as trainers and teachers, that most of the students and participants, like I told you, they use good English, they speak this language fluently. When we talk about us Arabs, there are a lot of like good speakers of this language. However, once you shift the topic into an academic topic or the writing, things starts to get a little bit difficult for the person concerned. And like I told you, this is to say that we don't read for academic purposes. We don't read academic texts, and we don't read to academic lectures. So I draw your attention that the most effective way to prepare yourself for the IELTS exam without a trainer is to start reading books like the ones I showed you before, and you start to engage more into listening to lectures by academic people or people from different disciplines talking about their field of expertise, and so on and so forth. Uh, the IELTS exam basically stands for International English Language Testing System. So for me, I think those two last letters stand for the most important, you know, meaning of this exam, which is the testing system. So if you understand that testing system of the IELTS language, for sure, you're going to do a good job. No doubt about it. And this testing system, basically, we can talk about it in two different ways. We can talk about language being produced and language being received. So if you think about it, when you read and when you listen here with these two skills, there is no production, absolutely no production. You are the receiver of the information. So you take any text and you start reading it, then you will be one of the two. A person who is able to grasp and get the general idea of the text, and you could understand those information, like you can understand all what the text is about, or you're going to miss whether all, like everything or the most part of that text in terms of what is it talking about. And here again, it's about you and your level in the English language. Let me tell you, show you an example. For example, if we pick any old like exam, or and by the way, this book is something that you should have if you want to really prepare for the IELTS, which is official IELTS practice materials. There are so far in my knowledge like two, number one and number two. And then if you go, for example, to the reading, here we have an example of academic reading. And as you can see here, it's like this is a text, okay? And it says seaweeds of New Zealand. Seaweeds of New Zealand. The text has 6 paragraphs, long and short. This text, I read it before. There are a lot of words here that you might not know of. However, if your English is good and solid, you would understand the general meaning of the text and you will be able to answer the questions. When I say here, in my own point of view, there is no production of the language. What you do is it's like you're reporting. It's like you see a movie and you talk about it to your friend and so on and so forth. So here in the reading, when you read, you would try to understand the text. There are techniques that need that are very important to know. Like for example, when you skim and scan the text, because you don't have enough time to um, read the whole thing, but still we can talk about these things in particular, like this all this practice. We can do it probably in a future meeting. Now the reading, like I told you, is a component where you don't produce any language. All you do is that you um, take the information, say it back in this simple way. You go also to the listen and you do the same thing. You do the same thing. So you listen to different recordings and then you have to answer questions related to those recordings you heard, and it's basically reporting information. However, when you come to the writing, it's your production. Of course, you are given a topic, but everything written is your own production. Also, when we talk about speaking, when you get answers in the IELTS exam, those answers are going to be answered by you and what you know and what you can tell about those questions. So we remember that two components, there is no production. You receive the information and you report it. And then in the other two components, which is the speaking and the writing, you are the producer of the language. And here, what I want to tell you here is that sometimes it's even difficult for a participant who doesn't read regularly. He won't be able or she won't be able to get the information quickly, and the person runs out of time, and this is not something we want to do during the IELTS exam. That's why when I told you that this kind of books, very important. You have to get books like that, and you try to solve as much as exams as you can. And at least you do like 5 texts, 6 texts, 6 exams. I mean, not texts. I mean, 6 exams, 5 exams before you go and sit for your IELTS examination. So the question now, if I want to be a good producer of the language or a good reporter of the language, what should I do? Language is a skill, and the skill basically is learned through practice. And even this book is called Official IELTS Practice Materials. And now, if you remember in the beginning of this meeting, I informed you that to really pass the exam and get the band score you're looking for, you have to know who you are in terms of language. In other words, you have to know your level in the English language. I always say that if you want to pass the exam, you should finish level 4. You should be in upper intermediate level. And this is the only way, I believe, to really go to the exam with total confidence that you're going to take in that exam at least 6. And of course, 6 is a very good, band score, 6.5. For example, here, the local universities, even if you want to study medicine, they only ask you for 6.5. It was 7 before. Now it's 6.5. So 6, you are good. And I always tell my students also that don't worry if you get 6 the first time. This is incredible. This is wonderful, because if you do take another chance and redo this exam, you can read 7 easily with the right training and practice. However, you can't do all of that, and you cannot be very successful in the IELTS exam if you go to the exam and you didn't practice enough and you didn't meet the intermediate level. And that's how a lot of students and participants missed the deadline. For example, I worked with a student. This student is a young man. He speaks English fluently. When he talks, you would think he comes from the United States or something, with his beautiful American accent. He's all good in speaking. In the listening, he does in general very well. But always with the last recording, he fails to retrieve the information, because his problem is that he was exposed to English that we basically learn from, you know, probably watching the movies or listening to podcasts about life and about celebrities, and probably about people in sports and so on and so forth. And this kind of you know I would say this kind of exposure to the language is not enough really to meet the standards of the IELTS, especially if you are sitting for the academic IELTS. And as you notice, like I told you before, that most of the participants and the students that we work with, they are looking for the academic IELTS because they want to either pursue their studies, or their work ask them to bring a IELTS exam for a certain promotion and something like that. So this student basically he missed 1 year. He was going to Britain to study there. In general, he was accepted one of the top universities there in, I believe it was in Manchester, I think. And he the problem with that university, or the requirement for that university, was that he should score in each component 6. So he comes to the writing and he misses that. He would, if he does his best, he gets 5. So he lost 1 year because he was so focused that he wants to enroll in that university. He couldn't change his mind or go for another option or another university. So he kept trying and trying. But next year, I worked with him on his writing skills. He didn't need a lot. He needed to read, and he needed to focus on grammar a little bit, which is another problem that a lot of students, face, because they would, misuse tenses or articles and so on and so forth. Even punctuation during the IELTS is very important. So I shared with you the story of this student because I wanted to draw your attention that sometimes the problem is that we don't focus on preparing ourselves to the IELTS smartly, so to speak. So if I'm good with speaking, then I should probably give more time to the writing. And the writing basically is the skill that a lot of people struggle with. And if you ask me why, again, I'll tell you, because people today do not read enough. And if they do read, they read on the internet, they read news probably, but they don't focus on reading books like the ones I showed you. This helps you tremendously. And I know what I'm talking about. So I hope that you start little, because the reading habit today, is not something that people build easily. So I always tell my students, start with 10 minutes every day. First week, increase it to 20. And in the near future, you'll find yourself reading 30 minutes. And people now, they can read up to 1 hour, because reading is something really that is wonderful. And when you develop this habit, your language changes, and you could use it without any problem, whether for IELTS or for writing emails, or leading a presentation. It will really develop your skills. Plus, like I told you, when you go and you listen to lectures, for example, you could pick a lecture about, let's say, the story, how the pyramids were built. People like scientists talk about it, and they explain to us the enigmas of how these buildings were built. and you listen to a different language than listening or watching a, talk show or something. So yes, if you want to work on your IELTS, you have to start investigating every little aspect about the IELTS to not waste your time. There are a lot of courses that are given in different, institutions and stuff. And sometimes I observe that people in there, they don't have really the same goal. So you have a class of 20 students, like five of them, they need six because they need to apply for certain universities, or 6.5 for master's degree. And others, all they need is 4.5. There are universities in, United Kingdom, all they ask for is 4.5. So let's say the rhythm of work is going to be different. That's why IELTS exam should be dealt with, smartly by the person concerned. And I think trainers, they should also take this into consideration and work with small groups. Depends on what band score I'm looking for. Am I applying for academic or general training? So after doing a placement test, like I told you before, and here the CEFR, this framework of reference helps us big time to, come up with the right group together, so we can start developing the skills, along the same level, and not finding those big differences between the participants in one class. And also, you as a participant, you should start, weighing your skills, the four skills on the academic scale. And you could use the CEFR, this framework of reference. It will lead you home, and you would understand, okay, I'm good with speaking, fine. I can talk about any topic. My English is solid here. However, when I write, I have many spelling mistakes, and this is a big issue, by the way, for participants and the people who are looking for a good band score in the IELTS, because for some reason, and I think I know it because we don't read enough, we tend to misspell a lot of words that we pronounce perfectly. So we pronounce the language properly, no problems. But when we write the language, spelling mistakes are everywhere in your 250 words, for example. And I think this is because we don't look at the language, we just listen to it, we just hear the language. So how does your brain remember the spelling? And the spelling of the English language, basically, it's not like other languages. Oh, there are a lot of languages who do have this, let's say, problem where you hear something but and pronounce it in a given way, but the writing is totally different story. So that's why you have to keep reading, so your spelling is going to be good. Because like I told you, if you know the standards that are going to be used by the assessor to assess you know your work during the IELTS exam, that helps you to give them what they want, so they give you what you want. For example, when we talk about the writing, when you submit your paper, one of the standards that they're going to take into consideration is the lexical resource. Lexical resource, in a simple term, is vocabulary. So when you keep misspelling words, of course you're losing marks here. A lot of marks sometimes, if the spelling is not really good. But when I listen to you speaking, you're doing a great job. But when you write, you're missing marks because the spelling is not correct. And this is one of the problems that we witness when we do the training and we do help, students to achieve the band score they are looking for. So I can tell you that you have to always, always take into consideration that IELTS is a training, not the language study. Know your level, try to develop your English skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Make sure that you are intermediate. You know, uh, pre-intermediate is okay for those who are willing to take 4.5, 5. Yes, fine. You can try if you have a deadline. If okay, after 6 months, I should be in the university I'm looking for. Yeah, you don't have probably a lot of time to, work and make your English to a higher level because you have studies or you have work and so on and so forth. But with the right pace of work and with the right training, you could meet the band score you're looking for. Of course, the job to reach 4.5 is not the same job and the same effort to reach 6.5, for instance. So, and this is personally speaking, as an IELTS trainer, I take this into consideration, and I always try to work with people, participants differently because to be honest with you, uh, a lot of people today, because they work or they study, they cannot do the job that is needed to be done to really meet the IELTS in a specific time. So that's why we should always be flexible and do a little bit of compromises here and there to at least get the band score I'm looking for. So this is very important. You have to make sure that my level is clear to me. I know who I am, so to speak, in the English language. And then I should get the right training and I have to give myself enough time. For the IELTS exam, there are no shortcuts. My language is here, IELTS exam is here. So for you, you have to know your level, take the training. On top of that, you already know what band score you are looking for. So hopefully, if we could probably do these meetings regularly, you could learn more. This is our first meeting, so you could to know me and I could to know you probably in the future if we do meet in another like occasion. So you could put things together, know your level, look for the right training, and for trainers, it's easy for them to help you identify all of the aforementioned and give you the right, practice materials according to your level and focus on the components that apparently need more time and not, focus on the others. For example, I mean that if you are a person with good speaking skills, so we don't want to waste the same time or dedicate, in a better term, dedicate the same time for your speaking skills where your reading and writing skills they are a little bit behind. So you're a good speaker, fine, we'll keep practicing that, take it to a higher level. But here, the writing, for example, might need a lot of work. So you need to focus on that. And hopefully, you could be in the right group um, to achieve that. And I think with with the Imanista Academy, um, you could find that, and hopefully you could find the group of the people with the same mindset to really reach the result you're looking for. And at the end of this meeting, I want to tell you that getting an IELTS exam with the band score you're looking for is a goal. And goals today, any goal in life, to reach it, you have to show the correct attitude, and you have to manage your time effectively, that during your day you will always dedicate at least 30 minutes if you have plenty of time. If you don't, you have to dedicate at least an hour. So if you have plenty of time, you could at least dedicate 30 minutes to practice the exam. You could also keep reading, just keep reading and keep listening. And if you do that, naturally, you will find yourself able to use English for academic purposes and write, speak, uh, write emails, speak, and deliver a presentation at work or at the university, and so on and so forth. And you have to manage your time. For example, when I talk about managing your time, when you are to read 20 minutes a day, you have to do that. And believe me, this comes before any training you take and any book you purchase to practice for the IELTS exam. You could also think about the time you spend on the road. If you drive to work or you go to school on a bus, whatever you do, always try to listen to academic lectures. This will help you, and this is for free. Do you understand the point? This is not something you have to pay for. It's something you do for yourself, and it will help you always, not only for the IELTS exam. And remember, when I told you that a lot of people they run out of ideas when they do write about a certain topic, and they come to me, oh, teacher, I don't have enough ideas. Well, the IELTS exam is really a great examination. I really like the way the IELTS is made, because all the topics, for example, that are put in the writing component are from the life you live. They don't talk to you about something from, Jupiter or something. No, it's from life. So you should at least have an idea about it. And if you don't read and you don't listen to academic content, you miss that a lot, etc. I hope that in our first meeting today, that you learned something new, you're motivated, and I hope to see you in a new occasion. I wish you all the best with your endeavors, and I'll see you next time. I'm not sure if there are any questions that I can answer. I'll be looking at the chat, and I would be very happy to answer any question that comes up. You can use like 20, 15 minutes for that. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for listening. See you next time. And for those who are going to stay to ask questions, I'm here. Just let me know in the chat. I hope that the organizer would give me some heads up if there are any participants with questions that I can answer.